Howdy howdy, Sudevil here. In this video I want to talk about preparing for online ladder battles. And it's something that I see quite frequently. I watch a lot of YouTubers and really enjoy their content. But frequently you'll see people start to compose their army once the clock is ticking and they've seen their opponent. And I think that really that's the worst time to think about your army composition, because you're under the clock, you're under the gun, and you'll see people hurrying up at the end. They might leave, 100 gold on the table, and at the end of the battle they'll say, well, I really should have taken this unit instead of that unit. I could have done a little bit here or there. And I think actually building armies is one of the funnest things there is about this game, to be honest. And the time to do it is while you have all the time in the world, because you can really think about every single matchup. And the way that I do it, and I've seen the strategy professor has some of these and some other players do, you just save your army setup. And basically what I have here is, if I'm going to play the beastmen, I only play the dwarfs. If I'm going to play the beastmen, I just load up my anti-beastmen build, and that's it. I'm done. I have exactly the units that I think are going to be the best against the beastmen. And if I want to make any small changes, I can while the clock is ticking. But after the battle, I can go in and take a look at my army composition and change it a little bit depending on how the outcome of the battle went. Very, very simple. And maybe you might want to play a lot of different factions, or if you're playing competitively, the other thing you can do is, depending on what your opponent plays, you could have the hard counter for that. If you think the best counter for the beastmen is the vampire counts, well, whenever your opponent is the beastman, you just pull up your vampire count army. And the way to save the army is, when you got it set, you just hit save army setup, and you save it as anti-beastman, anti-this, anti-that, and it always say which army faction it is, and away you go. It's a fantastic little way to save time. And by having your army set up all ready to go, it's you just get into the battle, and you're ready to go. Here's my anti Warriors of Chaos composition. I set it up, and I can start thinking about what I'm going to do in this fight. How I'm going to use my units. I have tons of time. If he happens to switch from Chaos to Bretonia, well, I just go and load my anti-Bretonia. That's simple. Done. Ready to go. And I can again start thinking about how I'm going to fight that battle. It's really a powerful little tool, and I think everyone should use it, because it really can save you a lot of time and make your battles that much more effective, because you're doing all your deep thinking when you have lots of time to test. One of the other great things to do is, if you come across a fight that you thought was particularly difficult, you can go in and find the army setup. This is a Bretonia battle that I fought against. I can't remember who, but this was his army composition. So I just went and saved it and fought a few against the AI, and changed my own army composition to be a little bit better against this faction. And I think that ability to practice and hone and iterate your army setup will make anybody a much more effective commander when you get into the battle, because you've already done your deep thinking before you get to the battle about how your army composition is going to be made up, and it can suit it to your play style or anything else like that. One of the other things you can do is pair this up with a deeper analysis. If you think against Bretonia, your strongest faction is going to be the Greenskins, you can go and look at these units a lot more carefully to see which one's going to be the best in which situation. Something I know from a little analysis is that savage orcs are absolutely devastating against spearmen and peasant bowmen because they have the exact same amount of health, and the savage orcs can two-shot them. So if you're building your army to take these guys, you know, your savage orcs are very vulnerable to bowmen, so you're going to want to have a couple wolf riders in there to get into the back lines of the bowmen, and you can start building your army like that, where you're really considering how your army is going to operate in terms of your opponent's key units. You know, they're always going to have bowmen. I mean, not always. Sometimes they'll have a full cavalry build, but or Pegasus Knights or this type of thing. And if you're going to go up against Pegasus Knights, you can put them up here and look at where they're strong. You know, Pegasus Knights don't have armor piercing damage, and they have a reasonable amount of armor. They're shielded. So what would be good against them? You know, I would definitely want something anti-large in this case, so either an orc boy big gun or an orc big gun or a savage orc, and you can go and test who's going to do better against those Pegasus Knights. You know, they both have a bonus against large. I would guess that the big guns will do better because they have more armor, but you can test that and have it prepped so that your army composition is ready for Bretonia to show up with some Pegasus Knights, and you know exactly which unit you're going to use in that situation. And you know, this could be a little bit tedious if you're going to play every faction and want to have an army for every different faction you're going to face. You have a lot of army setups, but really this is the fun part of it. You know, building your army to match your opponent, and the best part again is iterating, going back and saying, I didn't like that build. I really felt I used to have cannons in here, and I just felt they weren't effective at all against chaos. Like they can be good in some situations, but in some situations they can be awful. So I wanted to change my army composition a little bit, and I'll keep iterating this based on further battles with chaos, or if the meta changes, I might change a little bit here or there. But anyways, I just wanted to put that out there for anyone who doesn't, first of all, know about saving your army setups and how to do it. And if you look, I mean, you just set up to have 12,400 gold for your ladder battles and build your army from there, and then just go ahead and save it when you're done. You get into the ladder, hit load army setup, and you've got it ready to go. So hopefully some people found that information interesting or useful, and I'll see you later.